Hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan Kimmitt, and this is And Security for All. I'm really excited today. I love coming and doing the show. Always have some great guests, and we always have a good time and good conversations about a lot of topics. But today, I've got something that's really close to my heart, and that's our CISO Showdown. And we'll get into that in just a minute because I know that sounds kind of odd. But first, I'll talk about a little bit of the FutureCon shows. They told me that yesterday was the first FutureCon show in Chicago of the year, and it had record attendance. So the show's growing, the conference is growing, and here's the thing: when you go to these, I love going to them. It's just such a great community. You get people together. You get to ask questions. Whether you have great presentations, it's just a lot of fun. The next couple of shows looks like we've got January 30th. We're going to be in Dallas. I know that one because it's kind of close to me. It's going to be in the House of Blues. That's always such a fun show. And then February 13th, we're going to be in Baltimore. So if you get a chance to go out to the FutureCon shows, please do that. You're going to meet a lot of great people, a lot of people in the community. So today, my guest that I invited to come on, and he agreed. I'm not sure he's going to enjoy it as much as I am, but it's Chad, and he is the current Oklahoma CISO champion. Now, what that means is he's got a really big belt, and when he comes on the screen in just a second, you'll be able to see the belt over his shoulder. The CISO Showdown is something that we created back several years ago now, and it was we were really wanting to highlight the skills of a CISO. When you go to a conference, depending on the kind of conference, you're going to see things like Capture the Flags and other competitions that highlight that red team offensive security mindset. And that's great. And that's a lot of fun. But people like me, and there's a lot of people that are security practitioners that are on the blue team side, and there are some competitions for blue team, but there wasn't anything for CISOs. So when we think about what a CISO does, getting in front of people and talking and convincing people and doing the business side, talking to the boards and all these different things, we really wanted to have some sort of competition for that. So Chad, thank you so much for getting on with me and coming and talking to us about this. And as I said, he's got the championship belt there. He is, you won the championship in October of 2024 at our Information Warfare Summit. So he's our current champion, and I have specifically challenged him because I think I'm better than him and I want that belt back. So we're going to compete against one another come April at B-Sides, Oklahoma. And so we're going to get up there. We're going to have fun. Now we'll explain what all this means and kind of what the showdown is and what we've done. But Chad, first, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Kind of what do you do in the industry? And let's get started with getting to know you.
All right, you bet. Thanks a lot. And thank you so much for having me along. I love doing these kind of shows too. And even though I've got this, what is this thing, about 30 pounds, I think, hanging off my shoulder here. We'll see if it lasts through the show. But just a little bit of background on me. And I'm one of those people, it says CISO champion, and even says CISO great big right here. But I'm actually one of those people that I've worked in information security and cybersecurity for a long time, as I tell people, long before it was cool, but never actually held the title of CISO. I did hold a title for quite a bit of that time as the information security officer. I have held a facility information security officer. I've held a number of different titles, even CIO, but never CISO. And I think that really highlights something important that we'll get into a little bit down the road is really what is a CISO. Part of my background, I spent 18 years in hospitals. In security, I started out implementing the HIPAA rule when it originally came out, which was a lot of fun. And I'll tell you, if you've ever had to explain to a doctor why they have to use their own login to log into the system and do something, you should. It's a lot of fun. So like I said, long before it was cool, and implementing all that stuff when it was really breaking and just coming out. And it was so awesome. I got into that stuff. Like I said, 18 years in hospitals. At one point was even implementing security in systems across 54 hospitals, which was a time when my hair quit turning gray and just started falling out. But I've recovered a little bit since then. After hospitals, I spent 8 years in communications where I held information security officer role. Now, a lot of my career since that busy time implementing across 54 hospitals has been in small and medium business. So a lot of my focus is really small and medium business, and how do you make things practical, and how do you make cybersecurity real for people? Because what I learned is, as a security department, I joked a lot because I have my own department, my own division. So how do you take that security department and division of one person and implement security? And I'll tell you, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of people. You can't do that by yourself. And that's a lot of what we'll talk about today is how different the CISO landscape looks when you're actually in a role helping other people be more secure, which is where I'm at now, and currently at Gunnison Consulting Group, and doing security awareness across for a government agency as a contractor. And it's really a lot of fun, and security awareness is something I like to do. And the CISO Challenge or the CISO Championship is a great way to bring awareness to what people do, because I hear all the time about, well, what does a CISO do? And the best one I love is, what does your average day look like? And there is no such thing as an average day.
Yeah.
But that's really where we're starting from. And Jonathan, I'm going to turn it back over to you and let you steer this ship in a direction, because I can talk in circles all day long.
Well, and I think that getting to know you, I mean, I've known you for many years now, and we've done a lot of things together. We've done certainly the competition, but we've spoken, we've been on panels together, we've done training together, and I've always really enjoyed working with you. And there's a lot of things I've learned from you. And so when we kind of sat down, there was a couple of us. I thought about the CISO Championship. This was probably 3 or 4 years ago, and it was something that I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to make it work. And that was the hard part: is how do you take an idea of highlighting what we do as CISOs in a format that we could talk to people about it and show it and demonstrate it. And that was really, really hard. And so about 6 months or so, I kind of thought about it and worked through it. And then I started involving you and Kevin and Jeff. And we kind of hammered it out. We said, well, let's do this. And it's like, well, let's not do that. Let's do this. So we kind of came up with this idea. And here was the idea for the audience. We were all CISOs. We've all done this job, and we've all were fairly experienced. I mean, we had a few years under our belts. And one of those things is, okay, because our days are not normal, it's not like we come in, we sit down, we know what our day is going to be like for the 8 hours, and then we go home. How do we bring that up in a format that other people can experience it? And so we started talking about it, and it's like, well, we can't really do like a capture the flag for a CISO. That doesn't really work. But we could do a competition between 2 CISOs, because a lot of what we do is engagement from someone else. Maybe it's the board engaging us, or leadership, or even the employees, or the public. And you and I both, I mean, we're out in the community and we get a lot of questions, and we speak a lot. And that's kind of where it started. That's what CISOs do. They're there to answer questions and help guide people and make decisions and help people make better decisions. And then they can also do technical stuff and things, like depending on what kind of CISO they are. So we came up with the CISO Showdown. This was a showdown between 2 CISOs, and we get up on the stage, and here's the fun part. We don't know what the competition is. We literally go up there. We have a ref, a moderator, and they could throw anything at us. They could throw questions. They could throw scenarios, whatever. And we've got to respond. Now, the thing about it is we we are voted on by the audience. So when we go to these big conferences, they might have 400, 500, 600 people in the room. They're the ones who actually choose who did better that day. So if we both get a set of 3 questions, we answer the 3 questions, and then the audience chooses which one is the champion. And we have a lot of fun with it. And of course, we have the belt. So you've got the championship belt there that the winner has the privilege of carrying around through the entire conference and everywhere that they take it. Now, and for everyone to get an idea, these are full-size championship belts that you can get, and it's about 15 pounds, 12 to 15 pounds. It's a chore to carry that around on a shoulder for 6 or 7 hours at a conference.
I did that for a couple shows, and yeah, my shoulder definitely felt it. By the time you haul this and in your laptop and your tablet and everything else that you carry around with you, it's
yeah. It is. Now, I will say that's actually not the first championship belt we had. And you may not know this, and this is going to be for fun for anybody that's watching the LinkedIn thing. And keep in mind, if you are out there in the LinkedIn world, and you're watching this and you guys have questions, please throw them in the chat and we'll get them, we'll get those answered. We love questions from the audience. But so the very first championship that I got as a test was actually a bronze version. So I'm going to hold it up, and it's very much darker than the gold one that Chad has. And we kind of sat down and we talked about it, but we really wanted to have that when you're walking through a conference, we wanted that big gold to shine. People see it and they love it. People love, I don't know if you've experienced this, but they love coming up and taking pictures with it. They love coming up and holding it, asking you questions, which is another part of why we do what we do, is to get engagement with people. So we did the competition. Now, again, like I said, we get up there and we don't know what the questions are. So I actually wanted to ask you that question for you, Chad. When you got up there and you challenged Kevin at IWS, how did you feel? What was it like getting up there in front of that audience, that 400 or 500 people? I think we had 500, 600 people at the audience, and you didn't know the questions that were coming. How did it make you feel?
There is nothing like standing in front of 400 or 500 or 600 of your closest friends and making a complete of yourself. Like I said, I can talk in circles forever, but no, it's not something that really bothers me at the moment. It's kind of just like this. I mean, do I think about it going into it ahead of time? Oh, yes. Do I, do I get nervous about it ahead of time? Yes. But you know what? By the time you get there, and it's just like doing this show today. By the time you get there, what's going to happen is going to happen. And just like life as a CISO, you've got to let it happen, yet steer it in the direction you want it to go.
Yes.
Now we did at the last minute. If you recall this last one, we threw a wrench in at the last minute, and we said, you know what? If you're going to ask me questions, what perspective am I coming from, and what what industry do I work in? It's like I'm in government contracting now. Do you want me to answer like that? And and Kevin's doing other stuff. And how do you want us to answer these? And we're like, okay, so why don't we just throw up all the critical infrastructures and we'll just let the audience choose by applause which industry we're going to be part of.
Yeah.
And ironically, it ended up being what was it? Higher education.
I believe it was, yeah.
Which is one of the few critical infrastructures I have never worked in and don't know anything about. So that was a lot of fun when they started throwing those at me. Because actually, I think Kevin had done a little bit of that, but none of us had the background that you do, Jonathan, in higher ed.
Well, yeah, and I was just ref. So let me give you the stage for everybody. So while they're listening, is we had Kevin up there, who was the current champion. He had the belt, and then you came up as the challenger, and I was there as a ref. So I was running the bell and asking the questions, and I had prepared the questions, but no one knew what they were. And one of the things that is exactly it is, how do we do this and keep it in somewhat contained manner, And that's when I asked the audience, we kind of decided, let's ask the audience so we could do it from a perspective, because honestly, that really is the case. When we're going in and helping an organization, we have to think about their perspective, whether they're manufacturing, financial, hospital, banking, higher ed, whatever. That's all different perspectives. Yes, cybersecurity is the same in all of them, but there is a different viewpoint. And the questions that we ask, and we come up with the questions a lot of different ways, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But sometimes you just don't know what's going to be asked of you. I have been called into a meeting of senior leadership, president, CEO, the board, whatever, and I didn't know why I was getting called in there. They just say, Jonathan, be there. And I'm sure you've had the same experience. So, and kind of like you said, you've got to just go, okay, we're going to go. And I've got to be able to answer these questions or have an appropriate response to go get that information later. Now, the whole idea of the showdown is these questions are going to be asked, and we may not have a good answer for it. I mean, I remember when I was asked, there were some questions that I was asked, I was like, I have no idea. This is what I would do. But that goes into the audience. Would the audience expect us to be able to answer that? Or would they go, yeah, that seems right. They wouldn't know that, So I think that's a huge thing for us as a CISO is sometimes you just don't know. You don't know what you're getting into, and you got to do it anyway.
Yeah, and one of my best examples, one of my best real life examples of that really is one time I get this phone call. It's like, hey, we'd like you to do a presentation for the board meeting tomorrow, and because the board wants to know what we're doing about ransomware. It's like, okay, anything more specific than that? No, they just want to know what we're doing about ransomware. Okay, yeah, I can put something together. I threw together about 10 or 15 slides that talked about what ransomware is, because this is a board that's not a group of technical people. It's a group, it's community leaders.
Yep.
That's what that board is made up of. So, I kind of start with a little bit of basics. What is ransomware? What does it do? How does it get here? And then what are we doing to keep it from happening? I could probably talk for an hour and a half or 2 hours on that. And so the day up for the board meeting, I walk in and they introduced me and they said, oh, okay, Chad, so you've got about 3 or 4 minutes now. Go. I'm like, okay, I thought I had a little bit more time than that. So yeah, it was very much, how do you cut that down and how do you get the point across in a very short period of time, and how do you connect with that correct audience in a very wide, very broad audience, really?
Well, and that's really the issue. And if you have enough time, you can prepare, you can do some OSINT and figure out who you're dealing with and whatever. Sometimes you just don't have that luxury. I mean, I can tell you the one that I've got I've got several similar stories, but this one is kind of a fun one. I had just started working for Alias, where I work right now. And I get a call. It was day number 3, day number 3. And I get a call from our CEO, and he says, I need you back at the office. You're going to be on TV. And I was at a client site and I was done. I mean, the engagement was over. And it's like, I need you to get back to the office as quickly as you can. You're going to be on TV. And I go, what am I going to be on TV about? And he goes, I'm not sure. You just need to get back there as quickly as you can. It's like, okay, yes, sir. I finished up the last little pieces that I need to do, and I turned it over to the engineers, and I hauled back to the office. And I got there, and the news crew was there, and they were very nice. And he goes, great. Nice meeting you, Jonathan, this and that. And he says, are you ready? I was like, not in any way. And he's like, you don't know why you're here? It's like, no, sir. I was told to be here. I'm here. He goes, oh, well, we're talking about Zoom bombing and a few other things. Like, oh, okay, great. So I sat down and he interviewed me and we had a great conversation. It turned into a nice little news story. But that sort of thing really it happens. And as a CISO, I guess the real thing is to be successful as a CISO, you kind of have to be prepared for that. You've got to go, you got to have the confidence and the experience in the background to be able to walk into a situation like that and to be able to do it confidently, I guess. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, how often has that really happened to you? I mean, it happened to me a lot, but what about you? Even if it's just a random hallway conversation.
Well, there's always that wonderful elevator pitch and the random hallway conversations, but you talk about the news crew, and that's kind of one thing, but it sounds like that was probably a recorded interview, so that's okay, they've got you recorded. That's not the best thing in the world, but still,
Right.
at least it's not going live.
Right.
Even not as a CISO. But I did get one of those calls recently. Within the last year, I got one of those calls that says, "Hey, we've got a webinar going live in 15 minutes, and our moderator's having technical problems. Can you come moderate this webinar?" And I'm just like, okay, sure. Now, number one, I work from home, so let me get dressed first.
Right.
We got to get prepared for that. And I'm literally logging into this webinar 5 minutes before it starts going, okay, so what's the webinar about? And we got lucky. I actually, I don't even remember now what it is, but what it was about. But we got lucky, and it was one that I was familiar with. And, I at least knew some things about it. And luckily, all I had to do was really introduce the speaker and then help facilitate some Q&A afterwards. But yeah, I mean, 10 minutes after saying, "Hey, can you do this?" I'm live on the interwebs with 1,500 of my closest friends going, "What are we doing?"
Right.
So yeah, it is. It's something that happens often, and you've really just got to have the ability to be able to roll with the flow and pick up on what little cues you can to be able to help guide that conversation.
Yeah. Well, and that's true. Now I'll ask you. Now, I do want to get into the whole wrestling thing, and there's a whole wrestling theme to the showdown, and we're going to have fun with that. But just talking about that piece, of sometimes you're put in a situation that you've got to step up and shine. And I remember this was, probably 35 years ago. I'm getting old now. I got a lot of gray in my beard, but I remember I was probably 12 or 13, and my instructor, I do martial arts, and my instructor called me up and he says, "Mr. Kimmitt, I need you to cover class for about 10 minutes while I otherwise do this thing." And he goes, Are you ready to do that?" And I was a high enough rank that it's like, sure, I can run people through stretching and everything. But what he told me was, I need you to step up as a leader. I need to take care of this thing. I will be there, but I need to work on this. You need to cover class. And I did. And that was something that stuck with me. And that's what stuck with me as a CISO. Sometimes you do have to just step in and be that leader and do what we need to do. And I've tried to carry that with me through every time I've had to go to the board, even when I knew the board was not going to be nice to me. When I felt like they were going to chew me out for something or really grill me on something, they never did. They've always been respectful. I've always had really great boards, and it's always been a lot of fun. But you always have that down in your head. It's like, okay, did I do good enough? Did I protect us enough? Did I not, waste money enough? I mean, all those things, but you got to get in your head and go. So with that as, kind of the mindset of being at CISO, what did you do? If you know, really, what did you do to do that, to get better at that, or prepared to do that? Or did it just come naturally, or you just wing it every time?
I'm going to go with winging it every time. Yeah, there was really nothing in particular. I've been involved in a lot of things, even throughout high school and stuff. I totally bombed at some public speaking events in high school because I was terrible at it because I can't memorize things. And I don't read scripts very well either. So, that's just a mess to start with. So I kind of had to start being better at ad-libbing things. But yeah, there really isn't anything in particular I can think of that I did other than just to get out and do it. Sometimes you just got to get out there and do that. and the downside is you're almost leaning into what a lot of cybersecurity people really fight, and we all fight it. It's called imposter syndrome, where you always feel like I'm being an imposter. And I still feel like an imposter, even with this. Now it's a 50-pound belt hanging off my shoulder. I still feel like an imposter, even though I got the bling here to show different.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing is you've got to really not be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And my whole thing is like, you know what? If I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail spectacularly.
Yes.
That's just the way I like to do it.
Yeah.
It's going to be an awesome fail. But if we don't, take the chances, get out there and do it, that's really what it boils down to. And I don't care who you are, how many times you've done this stuff. I go out and give a presentation. The first time I give a certain presentation, it stinks every time.
Yep.
They are always terrible the first time. The first time you do something is terrible. The second time may not be much better. By the time you get to the third or fourth time, it'll start to smooth out. And,
sure.
And once you can see that, I think it's having that future vision.
Yeah.
And knowing what it can be, and knowing that you can adjust to match what it can be.
Right.
Is really where the key is. And it's being able to pivot quickly.
Right. Absolutely. And one of the things that I find really difficult is like doing this and engaging and doing a presentation in front of an audience or doing a panel with colleagues. I love that. I love giving back to the community. And that's really what the Showdown is about giving back to the community of what CISOs do. One of the things I find the hardest is when I am asked to record something on its own. And like I had somebody who they wanted me to record my presentation and send it to them like 3 weeks before. So I didn't have any audience. I didn't have any questions. And it was really hard for me. I mean, I had to sit down. I probably recorded that thing 20 times because you get in your own head. Oh, that wasn't good enough. Do it again. That wasn't good. Oh, I messed up here. You do it again. Whereas I really now I will say this 100%, I'm an introvert and I don't like speaking in front of people, but I love being a CISO. I love helping the community get better and do things. So when I'm out there and I'm in front of an audience, I'm in front of people, I've got people who are engaging. I love that. And I love that about the Showdown because it is all about getting up there in front of people and highlighting what we do as CISOs and being successful at it. I mean, you have the belt. And I know it's a pain to haul around. I try to warn people about that. We're actually talking about a new belt for when I win the belt back from him in April, which I will
in your
do.
dreams.
Yeah, we have been talking about a new belt, and heaviness is something I was considering. It's like, how can I make it lighter? So, okay, well, I do want to talk about the whole wrestling thing because this is a big thing that we got into. Now, I grew up on wrestling. I remember watching wrestling, back in the days with my dad. This would have been in the 80s, Mid-South Wrestling, and then of course the other wrestling leagues and stuff. And this is professional wrestling. So when we talked about this of getting up there and duking it out, we decided to have a little fun with it and turn it into like a wrestling match. So we have a wrestling kind of undertone in what we do. And we get on and we trash talk each other on LinkedIn and on the Discord channel and all these different things. We'll do all kinds of, but the whole point is to raise awareness, is get people involved. And I've had a lot of people come to me and they love it. They love the fun that we have. So you weren't one, you were this most recent competition. So you won in October. And you've been involved through the whole thing. But what's your thought on the wrestling? I've never asked you this. What's your thought on the wrestling theme that we do?
You know, I have to admit, I had to force myself to watch the Von Erich movie. Did you watch that one that was just
I
out? I
have,
don't know if it was just streaming or what it was, but
yeah, I
I had to
have
force
not seen
myself
it
to watch
yet.
that. Because I have to be the first one to tell you I am not a pro wrestling fan. However, my brother was, so I was around it a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, my brother, neighbors, friends, you know, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I am familiar with it. Never really a
Yeah.
fan though.
Okay.
But you know what? You can't really beat the opportunity to be completely flamboyant and trash talk people about it. Spoiler alert, I'm not wearing tights. For those who are not watching the video on this, I'm still not wearing, well, no, don't even imagine it. But that's rule number one, is no tights involved. However, Kevin did wear a mask from time to time.
He did. He did the
In
first
fact,
time.
I even
Yeah.
had, oh, it's not back behind there. I usually have it hanging up behind me, but you know, I have my Superman mask on too. But
Yeah.
you know, we do that kind of mask a little bit, but yeah, no tights. But you know, there's got to be a way to have some fun with this stuff, and really doing the
Absolutely.
CISO Showdown and being able to have some fun with it and tie in those analogies. That's how people remember things and how people actually learn things.
Yeah.
So I think it really ties in and makes the learning and makes the whole experience more fun for everybody.
Yeah.
And it makes it really fun when we get to stand out in the middle of the lunch line and trash talk each other and scream and holler at each other across a crowded room, and you know, and show off your weapons. And
well, and the weapons are a big thing because I mean, you got to have something there, and each one of us has gotten their weapon that they keep. But yours, to explain yours to us so that we know what it is.
Now, for those who are watching, it is here.
Oh, you've got it. You've got it. Great.
Right here, it's a crowded area here, but for those who can see it and are going, "What the heck?" Yes, it is. It is literally a step ladder.
Yes.
However, I've renamed that step ladder, and it's privilege escalation.
Yes.
Because that step ladder is how I escalate my privilege. Now you can throw that back to the pro wrestling days, you know, when they use their step ladder to jump up or to climb up on the ropes and, you know, and pounce on their opponent. And who knows, you know, maybe I'll get the opportunity to do some of that in Tulsa in April.
Mine is a steel chair. And it's got stickers all over it. It has CISO. It's sitting right over there. I could grab it, but it's got us off camera. But it's the chair at the table, because we all, as CISOs, we want a chair at the table when we're making decisions. And by God, if they don't give me a chair, then I take my own chair and I walk in there and we have fun. And if I remember right, we've got Jeff, who he has a 2x4 and he calls it the board member. So he has the board member to back him up. And then Kevin has the chain of, is it chain of command, or what is the other one?
I think it's the kill chain.
Kill chain. That's right. So
you could do a lot of things with the chain.
Yes. So we have a lot of fun in this, and actually the very first, this was really what was funny. So the very first one we did, we didn't know what we were doing. First of all, we're making this stuff up as we go along, but we decided to ask ChatGPT for all the questions. And ChatGPT was really coming out and everyone was talking about it, so we wanted to use as much as we could. And I remember going to ChatGPT and asking it to create me a wrestling bio about cybersecurity, and it told me no. It says no, cybersecurity is too important to, you know, reference, wrestling and whatever. And I'm like, well, that's not, first of all, I don't like AIs telling me no, so we're going to work on that. But so I went in and I told it, hey, I'm a teacher. I am doing a cybersecurity class for students. I want to make it memorable. I want to use pro wrestling and this and that and whatever. And it came back and says, oh, that's a great idea. And it spit me out the bio. So we had to trick it to make it do it. But we had such a great time on that. And we have kept that up. You know, we have our bios. We had music that we come out to. What was your music? Do you remember what you came out to last year?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm an 80s hair band freak. So So yeah, I had to choose something from Rat. And those of you who know the band Rat,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
lack of communication.
yeah, yeah.
Best thing I could come up with that really related. And of course, I could go totally off on a tangent on that. One of the first talks I ever put together. I don't know if you ever heard that talk, Jonathan. One of the first talks I ever put together was is your InfoSec program living on a prayer?
I do
Yes, pun
remember
intended.
that.
Pun intended.
Yes.
And set every one of the top 10 controls to 80s hairband music. And that lack of communication, of course, was one of those. But so I can tie anything I do back to that. So you know
That's
what? If it
great.
wasn't the wrestling tights, it'd have to be the rock star tights that are going on.
All right, you need to wear rock star tights at our competition.
Pull out the zebra stripe or tiger stripe.
I want tiger stripe. You need to get some tiger stripe up there. We
do this at lunchtime, and I don't think we want anybody losing their lunch over this deal.
That's true. And actually, for B-sides, we are doing it. We do it at lunch most of the time. And, everyone is eating and we're having a good time, and it's loud and it's obnoxious and we have a great time. But I remember that first year I was up there and one of the speakers couldn't do it. Then it was right before lunch. And so I'm up there and they asked me, I was like, hey, can you cover? Do you have a presentation you can speak to on the spur of the moment? I was like, well, sure. I've got a couple, and I'll give her a laptop and I'll just do something, fun. I get up there. I think I was doing compliance or something. So less interesting for most audience members.
Though we had fun. Ooh, that sounds exciting.
Yeah. But they had a good time in it. But I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, Kevin starts walking up the aisle in his Mexican wrestling match or mask with the ref, and I'm like, I guess we're starting now. And it was just so much fun because everyone was looking like, what is going on here? And then, of course, because we had not done it yet, we hadn't done the actual showdown yet, and no one knew what it was going to be like. And all of a sudden, we've got someone in a wrestling match or a mask coming up, and he's got a chain swinging around, and it was a lot of fun. We had a good time that day. It's been fun every time, by the way. So, but anyway, back to the weapons, everything we do is about cybersecurity or privacy, of course. And so all of our quote weapons that we have, we try to tie it into a concept that we do daily in life. And it's fun. And I think that's really what I enjoy the most about it, is we have so much fun in this. And we haven't even gotten to the questions yet. And we'll talk about the questions and the stuff we actually do in the competition. This is just build up. But it seems like everyone loves this build up. I mean, they get so into it, whether it's because they were wrestling fans as they were kids, or even wrestling fans now, or they just think it's different and it's fun. I mean, I've had people who reached out from different states were like, we love this. You're getting such good feedback on this online. How do we do this? How do we get people engaged? And I think that's something that we've really done well, is we've gotten the engagement. We've gotten people interested and asking questions. I mean, what have you, since you've been doing this, since you have the championship, what have you seen, or what has people asked you about, just about the showdown and about why you're wearing this belt?
It's exactly that, like you said. But even because of my previous role, and I have a lot of connections that are around the world, and cybersecurity experts that I've worked with that are worldwide, and I get a lot of that, going, oh wow, this is so cool. What is this all about?
Yeah,
and it really is, because it's just something that, I mean, you can't miss that.
No,
even a picture of it. And it's so funny because just yesterday we were on a Discord chat going back and forth, and then one of the other participants is like, "Wait a minute! I just realized your picture out there has the belt.
Has the belt.
What's up with that?" Because it actually does. I put a picture up there with me holding the belt up, being triumphant. So, We have a load of fun with it, and it's like you said, even walking around a conference, another conference in Oklahoma City, and I had it there, and actually I was helping check people in for the lunchtime talk
Uh-huh.
for the ISC2 chapter, and I just set the belt out on the table. And in the room next to us was the women in tech. We're having their lunch in the room next to us, and I had more of those women that were waiting in line to get into that room coming over and asking me, going, "What's the belt all about? What is this all about? This is so cool."
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a great tool to break the ice.
Yep.
To open that conversation, and I'm going to say what I honestly can't think of a better way to break the ice with a bunch of nerds than a pro wrestling belt. I mean,
yeah.
What other way is there?
And for those who don't know, I mean, it's a big gold belt. That's what it is, but it has CISO on it. So the bottom nameplate has CISO. And people will come up, they'll recognize that it's a championship belt of some kind, but then they look and they go, "Oh, it's a CISO. What is this about?" And that's when you can really engage them. And it's like, "Hey, we've got the showdown twice a year or more. We're actually we're going to have a dark match." For those who don't know what a dark match is a match that's not televised, so it's not at a big conference. But you and I are going to have a dark match at a local, it's called Tech on Tap, but it's a local get together of the community. And we're going to go have some fun and get engagement of the audience. There's probably going to be, 30 people there, 40 people there, but it's going to be fun. And again, I love doing those because it gets people engaged into what is a CISO like, what is it like being a CISO and what we do. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you're excited about that because I'm really excited about that.
I'm excited, but I'm also, we talk about that worry and walking into the unknown. Okay, we're introducing adult beverages into this one. That may take a whole different twist there. Being after hours and Tech on Tap. It's
yeah, but I think we're going to do perfect at it. But the unknown, that's the other thing about this that we really need to talk about, and that's because the two people that are competing, they don't know the questions that are going to be asked of them, and it could be anything. So the first year we did it, we asked ChatGPT come up with 10 questions that a CISO should be able to answer. I think that was what the prompt was. And then we flipped a coin to see who goes first, and then the ref read off the question, and then whoever was going, we had to answer it. But we had to answer it to the satisfaction of the audience. And then we decided, if I remember right, injects came the second year, but now we could add injects. So if we get a question and they answer it, the other party or the other competitor gets to say, "Well, what if this happens instead?" And so it kind of, twists them up a little bit. It's kind of like doing a tabletop live. But we have a lot of fun
in front of 500 or 600 of your closest friends.
And absolutely. But what I found is that I never worried about the questions. Going into it, I never worried. I mean, there's always that rumbling of the stomach of, okay, there's unknown here, but the questions I never had an issue with. What I had an issue with is I loved the answers of my competitor. You and I have not competed yet. So I've competed against Kevin, then Kevin, I've done it. I guess I've competed twice. So Kevin and Jeff, and then Jeff to Kevin to you. And then I'm challenging you again because I want the belt back. I will get the belt back, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there were many times that I was up there as the either the champion or we compete, and I'm like, I love that answer from him. I think that was that was better than my answer. And I remember this one where I had so much fun in the question of the other person. I just started asking them questions. Well, how would you do it this way? What would you do this? And we had so much fun it wasn't necessarily about the belt or the competition. It was about actually learning from one another and about growing as our art. And I think that what we do is a form of art, martial art, if you take it that way. And I want to grow and I want to learn. And that gives me that opportunity because I get on there with a great CISO and I can ask questions. So I always find myself, I don't know if you had that same feeling when you were up there, but I really like the fact that I'm up there with I feel like some of the best CISOs that I know in this industry, in this community, and I get to learn from them.
Yep, absolutely, and you're right, and it's kind of one of those things. I really don't know what you do when you go to see a presentation and a conversation breaks out.
Right.
But to me, I'm with you. Conversations are the best things because I can't stand death by PowerPoint and
Yes.
presentations. So that's always the best thing. But you talk about the injects, and I don't remember if it was you as the referee that threw it at me this last time. Our scenario we were talking about was ransomware at a university, and a lot of the personnel servers, or I don't remember what it was, personnel email servers, whatever, were compromised, and the bad guys have all the files, and now they want payment to get the files. So it's not just about recovering your files, and being able to continue your work. It's about protecting the information that they now have.
Sure.
And they're threatening to go public with it. And you're like, well, okay, that's, it's happened before or whatever. And then somebody throws an inject at me and says, but one of the members of your board of regents had some pictures in his personal folder that he does not want being made public. And how do you respond to that when you're live? It's just
oh. Okay, now I'm going to have to qualify that for the audience, because the very first competition we did, we were doing it, and someone threw an inject that I can't remember exactly, but I want to say that two of the people that we were investigating were having an affair, and we had to deal with that. We had to figure out how to deal with that situation. And I remember Kevin looked at me like, I have you had this happen to you? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, okay, well, let's figure it out. So that's the kind of stuff, though. I mean, some of these are really kind of wacky situations that we're like, okay, let's figure this out.
And that's exactly the fun of it right there is something that I've never dealt with. I did not see that coming, but you know what? Somebody in the room has had to deal with that before.
Yeah. Well, it's like tabletops, in tabletops, I've got a whole list of injects that we do. And one of them is a dog walks into your incident response room. And that's your inject. And people are like, so
I was like, well, no, the dog, right?
Well, that's the thing is, what do you do? I mean, what if someone's allergic? What if that dog is biting someone? What if, what do you do as an incident commander? And it's not until people really sit down and think about it, they go, oh, that could be a real problem. But the reason why I asked that question is it happened to me once during an incident. We were there and all of a sudden there's a dog in the room. I'm like, whose dog is this? But I had to take time away from the incident to deal with that situation. Well, it turns out the door was left open. The main building door had been propped open and the dog just came in, was looking for food or whatever. But that means we didn't have the building security down. We were doing an incident, but we didn't have security all the way down to the front doors. So it's a situation you have to think about. So a lot of our injects that we do for this is real stuff. And this is real stuff that's happened to me, happened to you, happened to, whoever the competitor is. And that's kind of why we did the injects, is because I may have had a weird situation that I'm going to present to the competitor to see how they would handle it. And I'll tell you, it is so much fun from the audience perspective, because they're like, that's what you have to deal with? I'm like, well, yeah, kind of.
Yeah, you've got to think of all those contingencies, and I almost want to know. You tell that story, but I don't remember. The one that sticks in my mind is the gas station sushi. I don't know whether that one was a true story or not.
It actually was. Okay, so what he's talking about there is I do a lot of incident response. I have for many, in fact, my first job in security, it was a volunteer position as part of the computer security response team. So I've done a lot of incident response for a variety of things. But we had this situation where we got food from someplace and a majority of people started getting sick off the food. And I can't tell you it was food poisoning. I don't know what it was. But to this day, when I bring in food for incident response, I bring in 3 different restaurants and people can pick one of them. They can't all pick the same thing though. So if let's say I have 12 people, I was like, all right, you 4 get to pick something, you 4 this, and they all have to pick different things so that if some of that food is compromised in any way, I'm only losing a quarter of my people or a third of my people. So those sorts of things, that's real life. So during incident, I always make sure I bring in 3 different kinds of food and they have to pick one, and they can't have all of it. But that's because I've had to deal with that before. And that's the thing. People don't think about that being a CISO issue, having to deal with food, but it truly is. You have to take care of your people. You got to take care of your incident response. And so you've got to figure out what is going to be the right thing or right decision you have to make.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think really the CISO Showdown is one of those things that really opens that up for our audience. I'm going to say the majority of our audience are probably more the technical types that don't necessarily think big picture. And when I say that, I throw myself somewhere in the middle of that. Right. I started in a sysadmin background, so I've done sysadmin work forever. And so I am kind of on a technical end. I'm almost ashamed to admit that I'm probably one of the few folks that are doing InfoSec and CyberSec stuff that I've never done a capture the flag. Never done one, believe it or not. I've never built a home network and a home server farm or any of that stuff.
Right.
It's not the kind of stuff I do, but I do have a background in emergency management, which makes me think of those kind of things as well.
Right. Well, and and that's actually another thing about the CISO Showdown is I get a lot of people who come up to me afterward and they're like, in fact, there was this one guy, he was graduating with his PhD, I believe, maybe it was a master's, maybe he was graduating with master's. Nice guy. He was great to talk to. I love talking with him. And he goes, I never knew that's what you did as a CISO. I didn't learn that in my coursework. How do I learn that? And that's kind of why I asked you the question earlier. But that's something to be said about, how do we learn the things that we learn? I know your background and your experience, and my background is, help desk, computer security response team, law enforcement, leadership, that sort of stuff. And I would never say I was a great CISO. I try to be a really good CISO to all my clients, and I enjoy it and I love being a CISO. But when that person asked me, it's like, I don't know how to learn this. And I'm like, I'm not sure that anybody is teaching it. There are certainly some CISO there are some CISO certifications out there, and I've taken some of them. And they're good content, but they don't cover the stuff you do every day.
You're exactly right. And I love to do this kind of stuff. And I'm kind of glad you brought that stuff up. And you talk about the continuous learning and teaching people and that kind of stuff. And I do, I do teach a few certification classes on and off. And when I've got another one starting Monday night that I'll be doing for the certified in cybersecurity for an instructor-led class for those that want to learn in-house with an instructor. And people don't believe me, even though in that case I helped write the curriculum for it.
Right.
But people don't believe me when I sit down at the beginning of a class and I tell them, I'm like, hey, I'm here to learn just like you all are.
Yeah.
You know, you all think you're here to learn from me, and I'm going to learn just as much from you as you're learning from me. I will
Yeah.
guarantee it every time.
Yep.
And they never believe me. But that's exactly the way it is. Anytime I do a presentation, anytime we do the CISO Showdown, it really sticks out there. But yeah, we learn something every
Yeah.
time we do something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not in there to read off my slides to you. I'm actually
Right.
there to learn some things, and
Yeah.
I love being able to pick up on that and really dive into those conversations, because
Yeah.
there's nothing like putting a bunch of people in a virtual room that come from different backgrounds, and you learn all those different things that maybe you've never had to deal with.
Yeah. Well, and even the showdown, you've got 500 people in the audience, and there is no way you're walking out of that room with that belt over your shoulder that you're not going to get stopped 50 times.
Yep.
But I love it because they're asking questions about it. They're asking questions about, again, I say it, I've never knew that's what you did as a CISO, or how do I learn that? Or where did you get that skill set? I like using this, we've only got a couple minutes left, but one of the things I like talking about is, for me to get better at like getting out and speaking in front of people, speaking to the board, I took an acting class. I took an acting class in college, and that's what made me a better speaker. And they're like, how does that make you a better speaker? And it's like, well, because I have to become the CISO. That's in my mind. I see that CISO person, and I become that person. So anyway, we have talked a lot about this stuff, and Chad, thank you so much for coming out. We appreciate you coming out with the belt. I know you've held that on your shoulder for an hour, or for 56 minutes or so, and I this has been a lot of fun for me. I hope everyone got a kick out of this. I really appreciate it. This is, I think, really important, because what CISOs do is really, really important. So one last thing for everybody. Again, we've got to see if I can get our next FutureCon event is on January 30th in Dallas, on February 13th in Baltimore. Of course, you can find us on your favorite podcast tools. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We had a great time. If you can catch the CISO Showdown, please come out. We always have a great time, and we might be expanding it. We got some ideas on how to expand it in the future. So thank you, everyone. We really appreciate it.